Hello, Latinos in Clinical Research. Welcome back. If you're on YouTube or the podcast, like, subscribe, comment, share. And the last part is the most important, share. We really need it. So this episode live, it's on Zoom, latinosinclinicalresearch.com if you want to make the live Zooms and not the replays all the time. If you are live, when you ask a question, keep in mind this is live and it's gonna go on all over the internet. So just keep that in mind. Okay, this topic's gonna be about conferences, and Monica, Judy, Ashley, Raul, maybe you guys can start us off.
Sure. Well, hi everybody. So me and Judy actually had the fortunate opportunity to be able to go to the SCRS Diversity Conference not too long ago, back in late March. First of all, really happy that we got to meet some of the LICR members that were able to go through some of the sponsorships that was provided. We plan to continue speaking out with these conference individuals or board members to see if they'll keep providing those sponsorships, because we definitely loved being able to meet so many of you members and speak and kind of get a little bit of your background. If you guys have not already seen, there's a lot of the interviews on TikTok, so please go like, share, and subscribe to that. But yeah, I think the biggest topic, I didn't get to sit in on so many, but what I did see myself when we were at the booth and having a lot of discussions, it was very clear that one of the common issues was not having an accurate representation, right, at the site level as far as employment was concerned. I think another issue that was pretty big, I think, was not having patient-facing material that is big on the Latino population. Right, I know Monica and Judy, you guys are pretty strong on this end about y'all's opinions, especially being site owners. And I know if you wanted to give a little bit on that, especially Judy, since you got to actually attend a lot of these meetings.
Yeah, and I'm kind of like you. Thank you to SCRS for allowing us to be there, especially Marcus for going back and forth with us and giving us those registrations. But I think I had a little bit different experience aside from seeing that. What I kept hearing or anything I attended was more about recruitment. How do the sites that are located in the various communities connect with the community? Like, how do they connect with organizations, whether it's clinics, whether there's some advocate in the community? There seems to be a barrier still in a lot of our communities on how do we get the patients the information about the clinical trials, and how do we do that from a site perspective? And so I know I was on a panel for that, and then I stepped into a few others that were kind of talking about recruitment and the best practices. So I think there is a gap on how sponsors can support sites with this, or CROs can support sites, how sites can do this, and then having enough staff resources for sites to be able to do this for those that can do it or are interested. And I did have those conversations with a few people who sponsor CRO, and I'm very happy that many are open to listening to us and to try to do something more to see what they can, take back all this feedback and see what they can do internally to help sites. But I think there's a lot more we need to do.
Judy, now that you mentioned that you were in the panel, what was discussed in this panel, and how you feel people receive this opportunity? Like, I mean, obviously this panel was very diverse, as I remember you mentioned, and what was the reception from people?
Yeah, I think it was positive feedback. Everybody was very interested to hear what each of us had to say because of what we already do and whether that community or who we're representing. And so they wanted to know more because we have that experience on depending, because of the audience, from what I understood, what I saw was sponsor CRO representative, but also site representatives that were sitting in on this panel listening to us. And they still have that, they're not sure how to connect with the community. Like, how do we reach these patients in the community? That kept coming up. Anyone else that spoke, somehow it came back to how do we still connect with the community? We have these advocates here. We have these people at the site. But how do we get everybody working together? And that's what nobody seems to be able to figure out from what I felt, on the panel. Like, we provided our experience, some feedback on what other people can do in the industry, but there still seems to be like they're not connecting, if that makes sense. I don't know. You're on mute, Monica.
I think what I would like to see in the following conferences that will be nice to see is those conversations in between the sites and the sponsors and the CROs, because obviously the three of us are have the best interest of the study to advance, right, or to overcome those challenges. But in order for that, we always keep on saying this, that there is a gap in communication, that we need to address that. So I think that a way to address that will be having a representative for each of these organizations and have the talk so everybody educates everybody, because for the site, we have gaps understanding many of the processes of the CROs and also obviously the sponsor, right? And the same thing happened for them. The sponsor don't have a clear understanding how the CRO or the sites work or process their things, right? So by having these conversations openly and like somebody like Raul was saying, that like as a relationship, leaving all the baggage behind and openly talking about what is expected and how things work, I think that will start helping and bring more clarity to the actual industry. And obviously it will be something that, being open and having a more clarity on how things work or what the expectations are, I think it will improve naturally and organically the rest of the processes.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and I think that like also another way to do it is outside of the community, going through these organizations like obviously LICR, but there's also other conferences. I mean, we're doing the SOS conference, right? Save Our Sites. If you guys haven't already heard about it, look us up on LinkedIn. We are partnering with Brad Garlinghouse and Dr. Daniel Fox, and this is going to be a site-focused conference. But also, you know, one of the recordings that we did there through TikTok was with Joanna. I keep forgetting her last name. Apologies for that, Joanna. Watch this later. There you go. She's doing a community engagement conference, and I think that that's really, really great because she's being able to bring in patients and bring other outsourcing organizations that normally, like we're a research organization, but other organizations out there that are solely focused on maybe bringing effort to the patient or effort to, you know, let's say CRCs with like additional trainings or something like that. I mean, I don't know, but those kinds of resources should definitely be utilized by these bigger CROs and sponsors if that really is an issue that's happening, and even so much more with the sites, right? Just getting out there, networking, obviously utilizing great resources like SCRS or ACRP with those conferences. They've been around for so long, but maybe also reaching out to other conferences that are new, that are coming up, because more than likely they're going to be stretching out to individuals that maybe can only afford those, or maybe that are only looking for something specific that they couldn't find somewhere else, right? And so it's just like the networking aspect is super important, but being able to do that, I think, is a big part of the issue, and being able to get out there and get more contacts.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different people and backgrounds of who attend these conferences, and we can learn from each other and have these conversations in person. And so it is important to go every so often, you know, because there's those experts in community outreach, there's experts at, you know, different things. And so it's nice to talk to these people and just see how can we strategize to work together, or are they doing something that we didn't think of doing? Can we implement at our site, right? That I never considered. So it is nice to do that. But I think regardless of all these conferences that are going on, there's still certain things that continue to be an issue. Like recruitment, still a hot topic, still seems to be an issue. Recruiting diverse patients is a hot topic, still seems to be an issue on how like to do it exactly. Then, you know, there's contract and budget issues and like other things. There's certain things that still continue to be this topic that year after year, they still seem to come up at these conferences. We talk about it, but I don't know if we have much resolution from prior meetings, right?
Mhm.
No, that's something that we should have in our agenda for the SOS conference next year. I also would like to mention for everybody here and for the if you're watching this video this week, we're gonna be in the ACRP from April 28th until April
30th.
31st. The 30th? Yeah.
30th, Sunday.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, Sunday. And if you want to reach out to us, you want to have any type of conversation, we will be there. We are actually would like to mention that we're going to be meeting with Black Women in Clinical Research, with Arabs in Clinical Research, and other organizations that are advocating for diversity, because we want to come together and unite forces to keep this advocacy, make it even stronger and more, help it advance, right?
Mhm.
So that's
Definitely.
something that I'm looking forward to, and something that I also would like to mention is the importance of planning before you go to this specific conferences, because each of these conference offer obviously different things, but the most important part is obviously the networking. And if you plan ahead and start looking for people that you want to connect, that's obviously the recipe for success in this, to take advantage of this specific conferences.
I agree 100%. I kind of want to jump back to Judy. So you were saying that that was kind of the more bigger issue, and that's interesting. I guess from the end side of the sessions, that's what they were discussing. When it came to the actual roundabouts, so that I feel like that was the more common factor of patient-facing material. I got that from sites. I got that like direct site owners. I even got that from institutional site owners. So like one institution that has multiple sites. They asked if us as Latinos in clinical research, if we provide stuff like that, right? Obviously, because they want something that is more structured and foundational. And I think because of the fact that the processes as far as ICFs and all that stuff with the translation for CROs and or sponsors, I guess whoever that process is through, depending on the study, that's like, again, a common issue. But as somebody that's not a site owner, I guess my question to you all would be, is that something that as a site owner or as an institutional owner that has multiple sites, would you be willing to outsource those types of documents from somewhere else outside of the CRO and sponsor?
Yeah, that I do that already. So most of the material we get from a sponsor CRO on a study is not really material that I use. It's either too technical, too much. It's not good to use on social media. It doesn't really reflect our patient population. So I honestly like to keep things basic, a basic ad, basic information, English and Spanish. Even not so study specific, just more about the condition. So we'll recreate pretty much a flyer, social media ads, and I go through our contracted social media person for that. And so that's for every study. I just do that from the beginning. And I'll start with a flyer and a social media ad. And then I have to get it translated through our other third-party translator. I don't go through the IRB if I can avoid it, because it's just easier to go through our person, get it approved, get his certificate, and then I submit to the sponsor CRO for review and approval. Usually they sign off on it, and then I submit to the IRB just to get it approved that way. Once in a while, maybe 1 out of 10, they want me to go through the IRB, so I'll create the English version and then submit it to the IRB to get translated. But I definitely recommend that. I use that for my site, and just because I don't really like a lot of the material that we get, but that's my preference.
And is there a reason why it's not specific? Is it because they're using something more like central or just like generalized?
Sometimes it could be very generalized, or it's too technical when it comes to the information. So it's not really patient friendly. When you look at a flyer brochure, it has too much information, so people don't even pay attention to everything if it's too much information. I don't know where I read, or maybe our social media contractor said that you have like a few seconds to capture somebody's attention on social media, and if there's too much information on an ad, they're moving on to the next thing. So that's why we keep it very simple. And sometimes I just like to focus on the study condition. We do a lot of educational content, materials, English and Spanish about conditions. We work mental health psych studies. So it's like the stigma, why it's important to participate in clinical research. And then I tie that into a condition like depression, how much it affects women versus men kind of thing. And then from that, we will maybe run a study specific ad for a certain study. But I think that seems to work over the past couple of years instead of focusing just study specific material.
That's interesting. So I know that you guys are very successful at your site. Monica, is that very similar to you? Because I know that you had just recently mentioned that for one of your studies, you got, I don't know how the most patients or the only one that had the most patients for your study. Just want to see if you can touch up on that a little bit more, because I do think that if Sierra or other sponsors were to hear that, they'd become very interested in your practices and how you're going about.
Yeah, I think educating is one of the key factors, like just Julie was mentioning. And this is, I mean, I noticed this since I started recruiting patients when I was working in the clinic with Dan, because people have more tendency to believe and to have to be less apprehensive once they know and have more knowledge about what is research. Obviously, it sounds like counterintuitive, but at the same time, it's not just like throwing the advertisement here. This is the clinical trials that we're doing. This is what the characteristics that you need to meet in order to participate. That's it, right? If you start educating people about the condition, then because you're building trust with that. And then after that, you start talking about the clinical trials or within the same video or the advertisement that you're providing, right? People then going to start earning, or the site is going to start earning that trust from the public, and obviously then learning more about research. Right, like in between the lines.
Yeah.
I think if you go straight forward just to invite people to the studies, sometimes it's just, I mean, the communities, and it's not just one community, it's in general that people have a different perspective of what research is about. The majority of the population have a bad idea about pharmaceuticals in general. So that's why we need to put more PR into this and make it more educative, giving more to the public and expecting them to give a little, right? So, so if the industry start gaining the trust, then things are going to be changing. But how we get this trust? By building this relationship, right? Building that rapport, and that obviously starts with the sites. So I think the sponsors should give more independence to the sites when it comes to the advertisement, and the IRB should improve the process, because oftentimes what I have experienced is that, let's say, I know exactly how my community will behave with the advertisement, or how to target the community where I am located, right? Nobody is better than the actual site. So, and obviously the principal investigator. So if we create an advertisement and we send it to the sponsor, oftentimes the sponsor takes their sweet time, like 3, 4, 5 months to review it. And first somebody review it, and then they send it to somebody else, and then to somebody else, and then it gets lost in translation. And then in one point, you don't know who has the advertisement or what's going on, right? Even that you sent a weekly message following up. And then after that, when finally get approved, if it gets approved, then it goes to the IRB. That is going to take another month or 2 months or 3 months there to be reviewed. So I think it's important that this process gets optimized so the site can have more freedom to create advertisement that is appropriate for that specific community. And I think this is bringing diversity to the actual advertisement.
Yeah,
So
and
sometimes, let's say, for example, a site that don't have somebody doing the advertisement for them or don't have the time, seeing the advertisement that other site that has similar characteristics, they could use it. So it's not. I mean, I think it will bring a lot of improvement by doing this.
Mhm. And it's funny that, like, you know, we continue to talk about this because it continues to be an issue. And the what Monica described hasn't improved. Actually, I think it got worse over time, sometimes with some sponsor CROs, because I had very similar situations. Before we went on this meeting that we went to, I sent, I think, 3 advertising proposals to 3 different sponsors for 3 different studies. And it consisted of requesting funds for ads, community outreach stuff, because we continue to be at health fair events and various stuff in the community. Something we do throughout the year. It's not just specific to one study. And then I think a few other things. One came back actually approved within the week, which was awesome. The other 2 still going back and forth, and it went directly to the I don't know, recruitment specialist within the CRO who's supposed to be reviewing and approving these. It's been a month now and it hasn't been approved. And so all those things I had asked for funds for, well, some of the stuff already passed. So, well, and then they come back to me like, we can't approve stuff that already passed. Well, yeah, if you would have approved it when I sent it, it would have had the funds for those events. Now, of course, it passed. So now I got to add new events that are coming up. But if you don't get it approved in the next couple of weeks, then it's not going to be valid anymore. Like, that doesn't make sense, right? But it still continues to happen. And this is a reality. And I just don't understand if there's a person that's dedicated for patient recruitment and that's who you got to send the request to, why it takes so long to get these things approved. Like, I don't understand that.
So honestly, every time we have
they have too much work.
I don't know.
It's like, I think going back to what Dana said in the past, you got to get rid of the middleman or the middleman process, because it just seems like if you could just communicate directly with the sponsor, I guess. I mean, who knows? I'm not saying that that's the
no, actually, and I actually have a follow-up to one of those, because somebody recently had told us that at a CRO level, right? And they said, you know, bypass that person and ask to go to the sponsor directly on those requests. So I did that for one. And then this other person within the CRO who's like higher reached out and was like, oh, now you can just contact me directly and I'll get these reviewed and approved. So I'm bypassing the person they assigned for the study to someone else that I didn't know existed, but I guess exists. And so I don't know if that'll be faster, but I just found that out this week.
Wow. Yeah. I told you guys just have to keep escalating. I mean, it's sad that you have to do that, but I mean, it's just, the truth is that whether you're a monitor, CTM, project manager, the truth is the kinds of amount of emails that you get in a day is no joke at all. And so by the time they get to some emails, and some of these issues probably take 30, 40 minutes, sometimes over an hour to deal with, like, it's just your email gets lost in the blunder of all these other emails. And so, yeah, it's just, you know, again, escalation is probably the best route, but then that just starts to question, well, then does that company or CRO need more help, or do they not doing something more efficiently? I mean, etc. But I mean, yeah, obviously you can point the finger as much as we want, right? I think it's just coming down to talking very openly and blatantly about the processes that are not working. And working or highlighting those companies that are open to creating pathways and solutions that might be more helpful for the sites, and then ultimately, hopefully, everybody kind of follows string. But I do believe what you were saying, Moni, because for me, for example, I'm naturally, even though like I love science and I love the background of clinical research and medicine, I'm personally just naturally, because my body's very sensitive, I'm skeptical to just any meds or anything, right? I'm always I question everything. And one thing that I've noticed, even just on the clinical side with doctors, is that when you go in with a doctor that literally just processes you and you're just a patient in and out, let's see you, blah, 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 okay, out, let's go, next patient, as opposed to somebody that literally comes in, sits down, turns to you, moves away from the computer, turns to you, leans forward and says, what's going on? Let's hear your story, right? Let's talk. You naturally already feel a welcoming, and that's just me generally speaking about English. So when you're talking about population that is coming from another area and different language and doesn't fully understand English, having somebody there that is bilingual on one end, and then second, being able to have the patience to sit there and talk to them is just a whole other story. So I think having those things, it's very, very important. And hopefully we can find some more solutions, and maybe in the next few years, hopefully there'll be solutions that'll actually be in the process to make these things change.
Yeah, and you know what, another thing that came up that actually was kind of part of this conversation is when you do connect with community and you do share information, then patients want to know what happens after a clinical trial. Okay, so I participate in clinical, like what else are you going to do for me? What's going to happen afterwards after I'm done with the trial? And a lot of sites don't have something in place for that, right? It's like, okay, you participate in a trial, thank you for your participation, and that's it. But what if they needed something more? What if they needed to continue following up somewhere? What if they needed to be established somewhere else because maybe they didn't really have a doctor who's taking care of that? Exactly. So then we want people to participate, but what's going to happen after a clinical trial? And what can we do for a patient in clinical trial? And that's important because that goes to gaining the community's,
Trust.
respect, trust. And if they just feel they're being used, and this has come up before, I think also something else I attended where patients feel they're being used, right? You come out to the community, you want to recruit for the study, and that's it. I don't hear about you the rest of the time. You don't come for anything else. You don't help with anything else. Well, then why can't we do more? Or should we be doing more? Which we should. But...
I totally 100% agree with that. I always ask myself the same question. What can we do for the community or for the participants? Because at the end of the day, what they are doing is obviously a noble act of generosity, or I don't know how to call it, but and not everybody participates, right? And then what if the drug is working very well on them, then the study closes, and then this patient gets just like nothing else. I mean, sometimes obviously if the drugs gets approved, sometimes they get the drug for free for a period of time or for a long while. But what happens if the patient finishes the study before the drug gets approved, they get in that limbo for a while? Or I think it should be something there.
That's interesting, because maybe then
hold their
that's maybe
hands.
one of the solutions we should work on with SOS is, as we're having these sites or different PIs from the different locations, getting their information, sorting them by region, right? And letting that grow. And should a site say, hey, we'll have a patient, they already finished a study, but we're no longer we don't have any other studies that they fit, and or, we don't do general medicine or XYZ. Are there any other physicians out there in my region that you're aware of, right? That we can network for, or who, and we can maybe even provide that. That would be, I think, a good solution to be able to give some sort of pathway, and then maybe it'll grow from there. Who knows?
Yeah, like a transition period.
Yeah,
Or something like that before. I mean, obviously, every study has their follow-up, but it's not the same as actually help them transition. What do you think about that, Dan?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of stuff you guys discussing that helping the patients after the study. My only solution so far has been putting them in another study. And I mean, unless they're a patient of our PI, there's certain cases where something's being used off label. Like a lot of the studies we have now are repurposed drugs that are already on the market, but for other indications. So like in derm, this is actually very common in derm. We know this is available. It's not available for your condition, but if you do this study, I know it's only 8 weeks, but if the doctor sees you're doing well on it, even when you're done with the study, he'll prescribe it to you. Like he's more likely to prescribe it to you. And now he has actual documentation to prescribe it and not maybe get in trouble or have like liability because of the off-label prescription, which is usually what the providers care about. When it comes to the other stuff, as far as jumping over the CROs to get to the sponsors, I mean, it's a great strategy. I personally don't like the CROs at all, but it's also risky because, hey, you make too much noise and the CROs are gonna possibly not use your site next time. You ever worried about that, Judy? Like when you,
No, I mean, I don't do that like all the time. Maybe it's been like one in a few, but usually once I escalate it through the CRO chain of command, I get some resolution at the higher higher positions. But no, I don't, because
I
guess
just
what?
did
There's a
it.
lot of other studies out there that we can work on. And so if it just doesn't work with that study, we move on to the next
The
studies. And
next one.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
also like recruitment, I mean, I've learned not to wait for these flyers and informed consents. Like when we use the same guy for social media as Judy. Judy referred him to us. Um, we just make our own generic flyers for every study. Like we don't make anything study specific. Like Judy, you already know you do Alzheimer's studies and schizophrenia
Mhm.
and depression. So you can just have like constant ads for your site. You don't need to promote any studies. You can
Right.
just do them in English, Spanish. Same thing for us with obesity, diabetes, arthritis. I mean, we already know what kind of studies we can do. Heart disease. You don't need to wait for the actual official, like the official study flyer, which is not that good, by the way. We had this tardive dyskinesia one where the drug's already approved and the brilliant ad agency like made the patient like a puppet and somebody was like
Oh, I
behind them
remember
Oh, wow.
with strings. The
I
first thing
remember
people
that.
said when they came in was like, what is this? Like I feel like the image literally shows you're being manipulated.
Oh, no.
So some
Wow.
genius came up with that. So why wait? Why wait for that kind of stuff when you can just make your own?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Mhm.
just that sometimes the sponsor won't provide budget if you don't use the central campaign. I mean,
Oh,
Yeah.
because they
really?
are saying,
Oh, the
I'm doing
ads.
central
Mhm.
campaign.
There's ways
because
around that though.
Yeah.
There's ways around that.
Yeah, there is ways. I mean, it used to be more strict, I think, years ago. Now they're kind of like we're open to, and actually, as a site owner, I already from the beginning, feasibility phase, I'm like, this is what we're gonna need. We create our ads because this is our patient population. During the PSV, I mentioned it, and so by the SIV date, they already know, so there's no surprises. And same thing like Dan mentioned, I'll go to Luis and just be like, hey, I need a generic Alzheimer's ad, so we can already start
Yeah.
using,
Whenever we start a new study, I text Luis. Matter of fact, I need to text him for 2 new ones. But hey, we have this heart disease study. Just make very generic things in English and Spanish on
Mhm.
heart disease. That's it. That's all we need.
Interesting.
I got in the past a study that they had the central campaign and they had the options to get the budget for marketing. So we choose to go to the budget for marketing, right? And then after we got everything approved and we wanted to start the marketing, we sent the marketing strategy. We already had the budget approved, right? And they came back and tell us after we worked hard on getting a marketing customized and everything, they say, no, that's too expensive. We pay this. And we were just like, now you're putting the price to what the company that does the advertisement is charging. And we had approved this. Why now we cannot use it? Right. So sometimes it's kind of I don't know what to say. It's kind of depending on
Sketchy.
the sponsor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that some of them are just sometimes you get approved the marketing just to keep you happy, and then when you start asking for it, they just kind of play around. So
Yeah, they
that's
use
something that
any
I think is
semantics.
Mhm.
yeah.
But I guess going back to the SOS conference, these are all all our experiences are good conversations to have with other people there. Cause maybe I have something I did that works for me that you guys can use and vice versa. And maybe that can
I
help
mean, look, we're almost at a
minimize.
place where we can, you're almost there now with these tech vendors getting more powerful. You're almost there where you can have sites informally networking with each other. And I mean, what do the CROs really do at the end of the day? Like, let's say everyone's using eSource. Every eSource vendor starts doing their own EDC. So they got that covered. Data management, okay, that's, you can argue either a AI can do it, or you can have someone from the site, like an unofficial site network alliance that does just monitoring at a
Mhm.
fraction of the cost without the travel. And then you've got the monitors. Like, what else is there really? Like feasibility? Okay, you've got plenty of vendors that can do that. You got the site networks themselves. So I think this is like gonna be an interesting decade, and SOS should be fun to start off the.
That's an interesting business, Dan.
Yeah.
The feasibility.
It
The
was.
feasibility. Ashley, that's an interesting business idea.
It is, yeah. Oh, yeah.
There's
Okay,
people
we're not
doing
sure.
it. There's people doing it already. Like I can't name drop, but it's like they're doing it. This stuff's already happening. And the CROs, they're either gonna buy these companies out, or they're just gonna become slowly irrelevant.
I know, now that you mentioned that, I know many of the companies or the tech companies that are providing services for eSource
Mhm.
provide services for the feasibility, so you can build your answers in the platform
Wow.
and then
Oh,
use
that's
that.
Well, look at
and
what
make things-
metadata, look at what metadata has, look at what real time has, look at what Creo has. They know how many patients you screened and randomized and what
Equine Pro,
indications.
That's
They know all
awesome.
the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Except real
And they
time doesn't
have
have
that-
a feasibility.
But that's all that's missing, but they know
Right.
the numbers and they know the sites, and they know, like, so sites you don't have to rely on a CRO sending a survey to a site and hoping they tell the truth. You have the eSource, the metadata EDC, you already know how many screened, how many randomized, how many screen failed. You have the numbers there for therapeutic indication. It's just a matter of aggregating this data and sending it back to the sponsors.
But it's not always 100% accurate, because regardless of your database, that say like you have 1,000 depression patients, they're not all going to be good candidates for that protocol you're looking at.
Right,
It's
right.
Depending on the criteria. That's why, I mean, yeah, if we have a better electronic system to capture this, where we can easily do our feasibility questionnaires, but it's not going to be the same thing for all depression studies.
Yeah, it's
Like,
not
right.
perfect, but it's definitely better than what we currently have.
Yeah.
It's a step in the right direction. I mean, it's data driven, not just sites feeling they have to embellish in order to get the study.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, we definitely almost have, so almost a whole year. We're shy a few months already, but by the time we get to next year, let's see what kind of changes actually happen. What is like the more relevant thing that's happening? And I'm sure at that point, we all know within time, even just 6 months, so many things happen in 6 months. And so I'm curious to see, what actually comes to who actually comes to SOS, the organizations, what they're going to be presenting or showcasing as far as, what they are doing for sites.
Well, you
especially
guys, who's doing the sponsor stuff? Monica and Dr.
Daniel
Fox?
Fox, Dr. Fox.
Do you know if there's any CRO yet interested?
I have not seen any CRO. The last time that we spoke though with Dr. Fox, there was no CRO.
I don't think they want to come, but I bet you it's all tech vendors.
I think so. I think a
There's
majority
a
is
lot
some
of
kind of
Yeah.
tech.
Yeah.
So that tells you right there.
PPD. Ashley's getting PPD. Come on.
No.
Oh man, you're doing this publicly. Wow, Chris. Chris at the end coming through
No.
strong.
We have been talking with some sponsors, so we'll see what
Yeah, we'll
happens.
see where that goes. Sponsors for sure. Yeah.
Sponsors for sure. Well, like at the end of the day, what is the study? I mean, doesn't require middleman. Nowhere in the
Mhm.
FDA guidance does it say you need a middleman to do your studies. You
No,
just
but
need-
they do, because it's easier for them, right? 'Cause
It
they don't
used
have
to be
time.
easier. I think it's actually flipped to where it's like they're getting in the way now.
Yeah, I mean,
had
No, go
one
ahead.
study. I had one study that changed the CRO like at least 5 times.
Oh
Can
my
you imagine
gosh.
that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Oh.
ridiculous. I mean,
Yeah,
how
I
many?
had a
They're gonna
study
run
like
out
that
of
too.
CROs. There's no more CROs to use anymore at that point.
Yeah. I had one that changed twice, and then the sponsor took back the study. The sponsor like canceled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm
Mhm.
in the wrong area, not seeing enough of the drama. Some-
Yeah, you need to come on over to the site
Yeah.
side. Or tech, one of those two, or
Yeah.
sponsor.
I mean,
That's
I
where
don't
I
know.
would
I
work.
like, I like the idea of tech a little bit, to be quite honest. Future, but we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see how it
Yeah.
goes. But yeah, that's just, it's definitely interesting to hear that. Having worked, because currently no longer with the CRO, but having worked with the CRO, and seeing that aspect of things, I honestly think the side is definitely on the more interesting end. And well, we'll see what brings it to SOS, but definitely a lot of these topics are what's going to be discussed, how we're going to go about trying to find solutions. We do obviously want multiple representation, but if we have no CROs that are reaching out actively, well, one, we probably have to, come October, Moni and Judy, when we're there in Florida, we really gotta hustle to see if we can get
Chris
some
and I can
CRO
try to get
representation.
the Korean ones we're working with, or Diane,
Yeah.
right, Chris? Diane would do it. Diane would come if we need a CRO representative. She would come.
Okay, Asia.
Yeah, I think we also maybe Daniel Perez.
Oh, Daniel, we'll have
Yes.
Daniel there. Yeah.
Which we're just FYI, we're going to be interviewing him next month for the live monthly
Ah,
webinar.
okay.
So just a little tidbit, we'll be posting that out shortly. But yeah, that Daniel Perez, he's definitely been a huge forefront in change and trying to actively work with sites and test out the inner workings of the companies and seeing where the
He
gaps are.
goes above
So-
and beyond. Me and Judy and a couple others are on, Monica are on these weekly calls with him, and he goes above and beyond, but that's not the norm at CROs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super awesome to have him as a
Yeah.
supporter behind our side, but well, we are coming up to the time, you guys. As we mentioned, for those of you that either here today or watching later in recording, next month, towards the end of the month, we will be having Daniel Perez from Worldwide Clinical Trials. I think he's really making some huge strides and change, so I'm excited to hear what he has to say. Again, we will be at ACRP this weekend, me, Monica, and Judy. So if you
Ah,
won't
the
be
three
there
of you are going?
attending-
That's good.
yeah.
Where is
and
it?
Raul's gonna be there too.
In
Where is
Dallas.
it? Dallas?
Dallas, yeah.
Dallas.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Raul,
we'll be seeing
Raul is
everybody.
gonna be there.
Oh,
too.
yes. he's gonna be there.
Oh, Raul,
Awesome.
good luck, man.
I'm gonna be the bodyguard.
Gonna do a lot of interviews and all of that. So I'm really excited. Especially I've met Judy finally. Now I'm gonna get to meet Monica and Raul in person.
Wow, you never
About
met
time.
Monica. That's cool.
No.
Mhm.
And then Chris, you'll be the last one on the list. Gotta mark that one off. Okay.
Man, that'll be epic. That'll be memorable when you meet Chris.
It'll be a good one. It'll be a good one.
Yeah,
February,
hopefully.
Ashley, February.
February.
Actually, we're supposed to meet him before then, right?
Yeah, we're actually gonna meet in
go
October.
and
We're supposed to
check.
meet in October.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
In Arizona, so sooner than later, right? But yeah, thanks you guys so much. This is really it was a great conversation. Can't wait to bring back some of the information that we get from ACRP.
Mhm.
But other than that, thank you guys so much. And
Like, subscribe,
that-
comment,
that-
share.
Does anybody wants to comment or make a questions or something or ask a questions?
Oh,
I'd like
yes, that's
to-
true.
If you guys allow me to make this comment, basically over this time of learning of sites, obviously hearing all these conversations that are very, very useful. I relate to each obstacles, if we can say, or challenges. So it's good to mix up everything. And I would like to bring up this and let me know if this might be a good idea. We know what we're trying to encounter. We know what we're trying to fix. I will suggest that if we can probably have a chat with a sponsor, because it will be interesting to hear what they need to say about that, because we
Sure.
can be between us talking, that this happened to me, we can spend a lot of time, but it will be interesting to confront, to say, hey, this is our voice, what you guys have to say back,
Mhm.
because in a personal level, I know that we hear things, we chat with CROs, and we know what is going on in behind the scenes, if that's the right way to say. But obviously, this is a business environment, right? We do our part, they need to do their part. But in this case, if we're looking for a solution, I think we need to speak with the main
Director.
I don't know,
Source.
the main topic of this, sponsor. Okay, so let's have a chat, let's hear, because I know there will be interesting things to hear, but also we're gonna put our voice out there, and especially the SOS that you guys are preparing for next year is fantastic. I think definitely gonna unify a lot of sites, but in the same way, the purpose is to get a better quality clinical trials, and also the relationship with sponsors and sites. That's
Mhm.
my perception, but I just wanna say that right now.
We can make a alternate logo. SOS means save our sponsors and then get them to come.
That's good. Okay,
So-
yeah.
So Raul, I just gotta ask, you're gonna be on
Yeah.
body card at SOS too, right?
Hey.
I'm getting my shirts, I'm getting everything, I'm going to the gym.
Perfect, all
everything.
right.
You
Sites
know what,
rock.
Chris? If you allow me to say, can I borrow that black car over there? Maybe that will look.
Yeah, I'll take the yellow one. I'll take the
You get the
one.
yellow one.
Yeah, the yellow one.
Well, Chris was very specific which one is his, right?
That's
Yeah,
right.
the black one.
Beautiful cars, Chris, beautiful cars.
Yeah.
Beautiful cars.
Thank you.
I
Well,
know.
anyways,
Do
I
we
hope
own the
this,
same sites?
Yeah, and I hope this input was helpful, because I was thinking aloud, like, okay, if we have these issues, let's go forward to we belong to say these things too. You know, we can combine everything, but then we can see how we can make it happen. But that's just a simple suggestion.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I do think that the sponsor, I mean, we're probably not gonna say it right now until we have confirmation, but I think one of the sponsors we're speaking to, they've been very forefront about wanting change and really showing action on that change. So
We have a couple also.
Excited.
We have another smaller one coming, Robert Goldman. And
I was about to say Robert Goldman, yeah, there you go.
yeah, I mean, a lot of these sponsors and sites have the same objectives, you know, it's just, there's a
I
lot
was-
of people in between with their hands out.
I was thinking that it should be, I would love to speak to the sponsor that I have the worst experience in my life with, to hear what they have to say about everything we have just mentioned, because they tick every box of the
Issues list.
of the list that we just mentioned about all the bad experiences or the things that are not working in the industry. That the sponsor tick every single box. So I would like to hear what they have to say, and also a good sponsor. I mean,
You
for
think they're
the
coming?
best ones.
I do
but
think
would
that
love
come-
to hear them.
I think
Um,
come August or September, we should really, between, you know, Dan's following, LSER is following, we're not necessarily following, but connections that we've all made along with Brad Garlinghouse and Dr. Fox, openly sending out an invite to have a discussion, right? Specifically to sponsor CRO, see who actually shows up, and then who actually shows up, having that, you know, one conversation with all of them. Saying this is what we're trying to do. Which are any of you interested in representing your organization to bring about a better solution, right? Because it's not about putting you on the spot. I mean, we can definitely do that, right? But if we're trying to be mindful of the time that we have, because it's just a one-day event, just saying, hey, we want to create solutions. So we're going to come up with scenarios and situations of what we've experienced. And we want to talk about how your company is specifically jumping over those hoops, and or are you open to other alternatives and XYZ or something, having that open discussion. But I think bringing them and inviting them to a meeting firsthand, giving them a little bit of a
Yeah, I
preview of
think
what
I
might
think that
happen.
would be a great idea. That's like bringing like couples therapy.
Right.
Really, that's basically what we're doing, because we have a bad marriage here with the sponsors and the CROs and the sites. Everybody's just pointing the different organizations, but what we need right now is actually real.
You know
Work.
what? When we bring them on, we should actually call that theme couples therapy or something like that. To make it, that'd be funny.
Yeah.
But awesome, you
Yeah.
guys. Yeah, we're already at the top of the hour. So thank you all for being here today, for having this discussion. Again, we will be in ACRP. So if you see this, please, you know, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We'd love to see you. If you're there and you see us in person, please let us know. We'd love to say hi and get to know you. We will be here again, live webinar with Daniel Perez from Worldwide Clinical Trials. Please be on the lookout for that post. And other than that, unless any of you guys have anything you want to add, you can definitely close it out for today.
Thank you guys. Like,
Okay,
subscribe,
thank
comment,
you,
share.
everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Always a
Thank you.
pleasure.